Welcome, Dr. Andy Rosenfarb, to our Way of the Emotional Warrior. My name is Ehnes, and I thought we could kind of have a chat today about resilience.
It's such a great subject, and thanks so much for inviting me to this conversation. Resilience is a very important faculty for success in a lot of areas when it comes to business or family or raising children or personal taking care of ourselves. I think resilience is definitely a keystone.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to set a little bit of backdrop without exposing anything too much of how we actually met, which is quite interesting. So, by trade, you are tell the people.
I'm a naturopath and an acupuncturist.
And we had quite a journey to his office, and by way of across the street, wonderful bagels and lovely office staff. We had a really good time there, and needless to say, it wasn't my story, but it's my wife's story. I can't say any more than that, but it is pretty miraculous. We are very, very pleased. Yeah. So thank you very much for stepping into our life, because prior to that, it was not looking real good. So you are an amazing healer. God, I wish more people would know about you and what you do, because it's quick, it's easy. I know sometimes it's hard for people to believe, but maybe they can step into the newer vibration, which I think we're kind of trying to land on, and get this across to people that, hey, there's a better way to live. You don't always have to suffer. So
it's true. It's true. There's a glorification of suffering. It's like this old school thinking that like everything has to be a struggle and suffering, and you have to like grind your way through your life. And sometimes, we kind of have to, but it doesn't always have to be like that.
And the way he and I got to talking is, I joined my wife in this whole process. I sat in on many of the sessions in the waiting room, and I don't know, I was just really curious to see that. And you work specifically with eyes, right? Is that
Yeah. That's the nature of my practice. We do acupuncture and naturopathic medicine, but ideally focusing on people's vision, help their vision with neurological conditions like macular degeneration, glaucoma, eye strokes, retinal detachment, stuff like that.
So people come to you at this point with having already gone to see the doctor that gives out glasses, and probably gone to see the doctor who says that you need surgery.
There's a lot of neurological conditions and vascular conditions. So a lot of these people have gone to their conventional eye doctors, and they're told that there's no conventional biomedical treatment, meaning there's no drugs or no surgery for what they have going on. Fortunately, our methods kind of supplement that lack of current conventional treatment right now that's available.
It's interesting. It's all really old school, it's from the Orient to a large degree, right? And usually natural ways of doing things and native ways of doing things. And all of a sudden we're finding, and it's complementary. I wouldn't say we should ever exclude anything, but it's really nice to know that there is something other than just surgery into whatever, in this case, the eyes. So anyway, I was sitting alongside of all this, and we got into chatting, and my prior work was with something called Kai-Zen consciousness, which is really all about continuous improvement, taking small steps instead of large incremental ones that might be too difficult to take. So in this small step philosophy, you start to inch your way forward and hopefully build a new life. Personally, I believe that we're constantly evolving, and I'm constantly striving daily, if not hourly, to become a better person and to make something. When I say better, I mean just to find a better way of being on this planet, how to relate better to things, and hopefully along the way, healthier. I'm sort of at that point in my life where I feel like 100,000-mile tune-up on a vehicle. So I've got a couple things to do, and that's okay, but I'm hoping that instead of having to live with all of these sort of three-wheel bus philosophies, I can actually heal myself back into a nice way of living and healthy way of living. So that's where he and I met, and he helped me out, and he was very kind. And next thing we know, we're chatting about resilience, which is what this is all about. And I said, hey, would you be willing to do an interview? And his clientele, and I'm kind of speaking to you and the audience. So And these clientele has got to deal with resilience. I mean, you come in there, I'll just pick a random scenario. Somebody comes in with macular degeneration and they're basically blocked from seeing a full visual field. Even glaucoma, if that were to happen and you wake up one day and you could go from seeing to not seeing in a pretty, at the tail end, you know, sort of, I guess, in a pretty quick moment, and there you have no vision left. And I mean, finding out any of this, that's got to push buttons. And now at that moment is where my work right now sort of resides. What do you do when you find out something really shocking? I mean, it could be news, it could be a diagnosis, it could be anything. I mean, you know, tomorrow you're not employed anymore. I mean, this is across the board. So, you know, the shock hits. Now what? And I thought that's where we could chat a little bit, since you yourself and obviously your patients have to go through this.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great thing. You know, resilience is, it's funny. I was actually watching one of the Rocky movies with my son last night. So it's really good timing. So that's, you know, he goes through this whole spiel of, you know, like halfway through the movie. And it really, you know, kind of paraphrasing, but it really talks about, you know, life will knock you down. You know, we all have experiences in life where we're going to take hits. We're going to take financial hits. We're going to take emotional hits. We're going to take social hits. We're going to be embarrassed. We're going to have health issues. We're going to take, you know, we're going to take blows from life. And resilience is about your fortitude, our ability to get up, you know, after getting knocked down, or after, you know, getting taken hit, or taking an insult or a shock to the system, you know, as you indicated. So that's a given. You know, life is going to dish out some hardships to us.
Right.
And the resilience is the capacity and our ability and our willingness to choose to be resilient, to look at what we want, to look at what how are we going to deal with what this is? Are we going to be a victim? Are we going to curl up in a ball? Are we going to be in ruin as a result of this?
Right.
Or are we going to rise? You know, are we going to be in ruin, or are we going to rise? Are we going to find a lesson? Are we going to use this as an opportunity to tap into an inner strength, you know, kind of access our resources, either inside and you know, our social resources and our family, our friends, or, you know, financial resources, whatever we have to do. But it's an opportunity, as I see it, to challenge, to kind of see what we're made of. And again, depending on the situation, resilience is about, okay, well, what's my response going to be? Like, how am I going to deal with this situation? Typically we go into a fight or flight, right? We either like bury our head in the sand to avoid it, or we get up in like this whole huge, like, you know, fight or flight situation. Through doing work like you do, or things like meditation, or, you know, mindfulness, we can learn to distance ourselves and acknowledge, or at least come to the realization that, hey, there is no me. So if there is no real me, this can't be happening to me. This could just be happening to an experience, and there is a perspective. So if we can reframe a little bit and kind of zoom out and say, okay, well, there might be an opportunity here for me to learn something, to strengthen myself, to work something out, to create a new relationship, to find a creative, strategic solution to something that seems impossible, like a daunting situation. We come out of it the other side, you know, leveled up, you know, and upgraded, an evolved version of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know, in what I experience, and I don't mean to make it only twofold, but I think quite often we run into a victim mindset when something happens, because we've been conditioned lifelong, I think, at least in my personal experience, that things happen to us instead of, and this is my sort of new work, you know, how can this be happening for me? So what is it, as you know, what you're suggesting, what is it that could be learned from this? What is it that we're made of? But again, you know, blending in there, this continuous improvement. If I were to find out today that I've got some vision issues, and I do the work and I research it and I find you, you know, I have to take the initiative to want to go see you. I mean, you don't live next door to me or I to you, and, you know, you can't do this through the computer. So, I mean, I have to make a choice. There's some things you give up, but I mean, along the way, the decision to better yourself, and as you said, up level, I think is a very powerful thing. And that up leveling next time around when something happens, I think you carry that sort of, in your 2.0 world, you carry the 1.0 experience plus that extra bit of something that made you just a little bit stronger. And now you approach the next shockwave as a 2.0 instead of a 1.0 with a bag of pity, on your back.
Yeah, I agree. It's, and even for the strongest of us, you know what I mean? When when you're blindsided, or, you never know. There's crazy stuff happens. You can have a spouse die, you can lose a job, or you can be diagnosed with, a vision issue or cancer. There's some real hard stuff that life can, tax situate. You never know. Like, there's stuff that, maybe we have control over, or maybe we don't. It's just like a circumstance. Maybe you get into an accident. Like, maybe you're driving late and you fall asleep, with the wheel, and you don't really intend to, but you get into it. So these things can happen. And what happens is it's very easy to, at least initially, like, kind of, again, go into that fight or flight or call into victim mode. And resilience is about speed and swiftness of pulling ourselves out of that, and not tolerating that. For me, it's not tolerating that for myself. And as you said, like, it's about being proactive and making a decision to create the situation, then react to the situation. Like, how do I want this to play out? You know what I mean? I'm like kind of a victim here, and that means I have no say in it, right? That's real victim mindset.
Yeah.
But changing that around and saying, well, maybe I do. Like, maybe I do, and maybe I don't have total control, but what control do I have, and how can I, step into this in a way that's powerful, that I can have some control, even if it's just control over my own emotions, how I'm talking to myself and thinking through this and feeling through this, because ultimately it's our feelings that start to become either batteries or black holes, either that suck the energy and the life out of us, or we kind of get, inspired, or, it's like taking a can of spinach and, ready to go at it. It's just like, are we going to empower ourselves? Or are we going to kind of like really, kind of rob ourselves from that ability to create, again, use our faculties of creative problem solving to move forward in this experience. And, hey, what can I do here? What am I made of?
So one of the dimensions of the work we're researching now is that, yes, certainly the large shock waves are, fairly obvious in that way, the way you described it. Some, lose a spouse or an accident. But what we're finding also, and this probably chisels away harder, are the small things. So, I tried really hard last night, to get this technology here working, and I found out a camera didn't work. So then you go over here, but the light's not right. And I thought I had it all worked out last night. And then today at 10, I said, oh, hey, let me go check it out. And something else doesn't work. And it should be obvious. Let me open up a laptop. Here's a camera. Okay. But it didn't look right. And I don't want that for posterity's sake on YouTube, looking like it came through a cheese grater. So, there's what I'd like to ask you, see what your input on this is. How do we arm ourselves, and take that spinach can for all of these little events? So let me give you an example. So you have a situation where somebody's life is just continuously spiraling down. There are these dominoes that have a downward spiral in their life. So you are doing fine on a Monday and the tire blows out. The tire blows out and you didn't have enough money for the tire, so now you charge it, but you also need something else 3 weeks later, and now at the end of the month you don't have enough to pay the bills. And now you have it. So, this just leads. So now you got to borrow. And when you borrow, you got to pay interest. That means you're paying back more than it was worth. And then comes the next month and, it just keeps on going. How do we put the brakes into that? What do you think might be one or two tools to stop that at that moment, power up and dig your way back out? Down the road, we should be inoculated. Down the road, I'm thinking that if somebody's been doing this quite a while, okay, they do have a constant, they eat spinach all day. You know what I mean? In little doses, they have every 20 minutes at spinach hit.
There's a truth to it.
Don't get hit so hard. But how do we deal with this? And I think this is very common that people get hit.
Common. It's the micro, absolutely. The big things are actually, it is interesting. So I know quite a few people who do very well dealing with big traumas, big situations, big shocks, but they have a very hard time dealing with the little stuff. I see this all the time. And what happens is it's like little, like I said, little micro traumas that just keep accumulating, just kind of tearing away at us. And this is where practicing daily self-care, or what I call radical self-care, comes into play. By working out, things like meditating, eating right, prayer, whatever it is that kind of fills up our tanks,
right.
That is going to be our insurance policy against this stuff. So, try to respond when your tanks are empty. Good luck. You know what I mean? Like, right. That's the worst. The worst case scenario is when you're already like down, and you add, insult to injury, and it's just like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like it just, we kind of keeps coming. Yeah. So what happens, we have to use a daily practice of decompression and tuning back in, and that'll again give us that clarity. And at least for me, what I find is, when I go for days without exercising, or I go days without meditating, or spending time with my family, or basically doing things that I like for me, things that kind of charge me up, that's when I'm more susceptible to be more triggered by issues. But I also think that it's a lot of mindfulness and checking in with our emotions, which, is kind of like a chromosomal defect for those of us carrying a Y chromosome, i.e. dudes. We're not really good with checking in with our feelings. You know what I mean? We're like kind of horny or pissed. Those are negative emotions. Or we're like pretty good. But women have a lot greater access, at least up front, to a spectrum of emotions that I guess maybe socially it's easier to dive into, and for guys it's kind of harder. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, to answer your question, I found that checking in periodically with my feelings, or we can also call it our frequency or our signal, that's going to give me the best guidance. Like, how do I feel about this? Like, I'm moving into the situation and I have to check in with how do I feel about this? This doesn't feel good. I don't feel good right now about this. I feel stressed. I feel anxious. I feel irritated. I feel depressed. I feel, kind of powerless. I feel victim. I feel sorry for myself. I feel like, going into my cave and I don't want to deal with anybody. I just want to hibernate and just everybody, wife, kids, everybody, partner, just go away, leave me alone. So learning to be okay with feeling and identifying, even if I feel sad, something may happen, I feel sad about it, and just, not being a wuss, just being okay with feeling sad about it, and just accepting those emotions and just being present with those emotions, as opposed to trying to push them away and just be like, yeah, I'm kind of feeling sad today. Something happened and I feel sad, and just process those emotions and just be okay. And I mean, you don't have to walk around crying and emoting on everybody, of course, but just be present to what I'm feeling right now, whether it's irritated, whether it's depressed, whether it's anxious, whether it's downright angry, or, or whatever, maybe just really bummed out at what's going on. So what happens is, I find that if you can just stop, just stop the train for a minute that's kind of going into this, we can realize that we do have some say in how we feel. So my goal is to okay, what could I do to feel better right now? Because right now is all that's all that exists. Yeah. The future is gone. The past is gone. The future has not happened yet. So those are not real. Those are all conjugated, fabricated ideas about what we think based on our past experience or our memories. So we want to kind of have what we call a selective amnesia. Forget what just happened. Focus on how I want to feel right now, which becomes the most important thing for me right now. How could I feel better? What can I do right now to feel better? Great. Can I text my wife and just tell her I love her? Can I, maybe listen to some inspiring words? Can I read a passage? Can I go to church? Can I go meditate? Can I work out? What can I do right now that, again, Tony Robbins talks a lot about changing state. So it's really I'm in a shitty state right now. And what can I do to just make myself feel I needed to go to Pollyanna, to just feel a little bit better. So it's called a course correct. So I'm kind of going down this negative track, and I want to shift tracks. Right. So in order to do that, that's where the effort and that's where the work has to come in. And that's where I have to have these tools available to me and set up before these things happen. So the work is knowing this stuff's going to coming, creating my environment with tools and systems that'll allow me to course correct as fast as possible and get back to feeling how I want to feel, and ultimately producing and living out my actions and experiences will follow suit.
All right, so let's walk down the dude road for a second. So,
Dude,
as a dude, you know, like you, I deal with the public quite a bit on a daily basis. So I walk in, and let's say it's a sad day. I mean, so there are fires in Australia, right? And you find out some gargantuan number of animals are just being wiped out. I mean, it's sad. And it was, you know, we had sort of last week, Monday was a sad day for it. It was a world sad day. Now, you come in, it's expected of you, I think, as a guy, it's expected of you to basically step up, you know, leave your stuff by the door. I mean, this is what professionalism is, right? And you leave it at the door, and somehow you have to play nice and play professional, but you can't always check this stuff at the door. I mean, you're a human being, you know, and like you said, I have it. So even with a set of tools, if I'm physically walking into that room, I thought I kind of checked it. Yeah, you know, I mean, I thought I left it at the door, and I walk in, and now you've got all these people whose energy is bouncing like ping pong balls all over the place. What is a strategy that you think at that moment you can use to, I mean, you can't just walk out. I mean, I guess you could, but what do you do? I mean, you're supposed to be professional. You're supposed to step in, you know, I mean,
I know.
You walk in your front door that Monday, you know, and you walk in, who knows what just happened? Could have been anything in the parking lot. Maybe some, you know, you just got off the phone with somebody. Like, how do you step into that professional situation and set yourself up for success? What do you think are some tools?
Great. I love that. I absolutely love that. There's so much truth in that and relevance. For me, I've done a lot of training around this. I've taken and giving training around this. All I can speak from is my experience, what I do, what's worked for me. I used to have a similar mindset of like, you know, I just kind of got to put on this, you know, this fake happy face and stuff like that. And I did that for a long time, you know, and, you know, you can do that for a while until somebody triggers you, you know what I mean, when you're in that state. But what I found is it's not so much initially, it may be a little bit of a fake it till you make it. But I've also found that it's just an access to a state. And again, I'm just kind of using terms that Tony Robbins used because I've done some studies with his stuff and it's relevant. But when we talk about our frequency or our state, like I know, like I have to go in and I've like had a fight with my wife, or my kids were, you know, kind of off that morning, and I have to, you know, kind of leave that at home and have to go in and, you know, see patients who need me to be present and clear right now and empathetic to their situation. So I can practice selective amnesia and forget what happened and say, look, and that's a skill set. That is not something that we're born with. That's something that we need to work on. So that's one option. I can choose to table that and say, look, there's nothing I can do about this right now. And right now I can't, I have to focus on, or I'm going to focus on my work or whatever I have to do right now. So I need to, inside myself, access a state of being that is going to be the most positive and productive for the situation that I have to be in. Whether it's date night with my wife, whether it's my kids, I got 3 boys, one of them is having a hard day, whether it's a patient who's having a breakdown, whether it's my staff is having an issue, whether, you know, whatever it is, maybe it's a global issue, you know, that needs some urgency and some attention, donations or something like that. So I have to almost like pre-pave these states that I need to access in order to become the version of me that I want to be in that situation. The other option is that I've done this as well, is if it's that intense and that extreme, like if you're out of your mind because of a situation, either from grief, anxiety, shock, depression, anger, whatever, you have to say no sometimes. You know, sometimes you have to cancel. Like I have had, you know, somebody passes, you get a fire in your hat, like you have to cancel patients. For me, you have to cancel appointments. You have to cancel a date. You know, it's like, it's okay. And if somebody doesn't get it, that's on them. But again, that's checking it with yourself and like, you know, do I have access right now to this state that I need to be in order to be the person that I want to be for this circumstance? And if I can access that, great, I will, and I'll go forward and I'll do the best that I possibly can. If it's impossible for me, if I'm so out of my mind, I have to put myself in a timeout. That means that, like, for example, if we either one of us had an issue coming onto this call and I was like, look, I can't do this right now. You know, I'm like a mess. Like I just got bad news and I can't be present right now because I'm distracted. And that's really the way I look at these things. There's something that's distracting us from being present in the present moment with whomever or whatever we have to manage. So going back to it, we can either access a state to be productive, or that person that we need to show up as, or if it's extreme, you know, we have to cancel or just say no, or say, look, I'm going to have to take a rain check on this. And, you know, I'm sorry for your inconvenience, but, you know, look, you know, airplanes do it all the time, you know, there's going to be a delay or a cancellation, you know, and, you know, and you don't have to apologize for that. I mean, you can, but it's like, look, everybody has stuff going on. And if I can make it and show up to the degree that that my integrity will support, then I'll do it. But if I can't do it, then I can't do it. And it's on my integrity to say no than to show up here for my patients or for my kids or for my wife or for my community or to give a presentation or whatever, show up like, you know, half of what I could. So that's not effective either. So I'd rather show up to the best of my ability than show up, you know, a hot mess.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I try to practice on a daily basis is gratitude. And I know this sounds kind of, you know, fluffy, if you will, foo-foo, but, you know, as a dude, you know, but I find that this proactive gratitude work does let me sort of have that moment where I can, first of all, I do it in the morning and I do it right before I go to sleep. And I find that, I wake up in a pretty good state. And since I'm already reaffirming it the moment I wake up before anything hits me, to go through the day, that moment you say where you have to take that inventory and seek that state shift, I find that's a lot easier when you've been practicing something. And in my case, I like gratitude because it's a very humbling attribute, you know. And I mean, because we go through the day and we build up kudos and accolades and we try to make ourselves better and we look at success rates and we look at this and that. So there's this constant buildup of the ego. But I think that gratitude is sort of this equalizer where, you know, you are just a bag of bones and some water, you know. And at the end of the day, are you really that important? But you don't put yourself down. But I mean, I think with gratitude, now, if that state shift is required, I find that's going to be a whole lot easier. Do you have anything?
I agree. So I agree. I couldn't agree more. So gratitude and appreciation, from my perspective and my experience, there is no faster track to happiness. Because that which we appreciate appreciates. It magnifies. We give more energy to that. So if we're not appreciating something, or even going to the opposite side of appreciation, which is condemnation, if we're condemning something, hating it, cursing it, we're also expanding that energy. So we're magnifying the negativity there. And that is what makes life a living hell, pretty much. Yeah. On the other side, if we magnify, or through showing gratitude or appreciation, when we take time to train ourselves or create the habit of appreciating everything that we could possibly appreciate, even the hard stuff, that it's not hard stuff anymore. Like if you show up to a difficult situation and you have appreciation for it, doesn't it cease to be a difficult situation?
Yeah.
You know, if you're appreciating it, it's no longer difficult. It's an opportunity, and it just takes the bite out of it. And it's like, okay, well, you know, I got this. I can handle this. Let me see what I could do here. So it starts, I think the appreciation process starts ultimately with appreciating ourselves. Like I appreciate present time, the situation for what it is. and what lessons, and I appreciate that I might not see the lesson right now, but I could see it. You know what I mean? I may get a lesson or a value or an upgrade or an evolution as a result of this experience. So not knowing, it's like, again, victim comes from knowing, oh, this is horrible for me. I'm being this, I'm being that, this is happening to me. It's a knowing, and it may not be true. We may not know that there can be a higher power or something, or, something that's injected into our lives for our own growth and evolution and, and our expansion that we're just not aware of. There's so many things that we're not aware of. So, getting back to your point, we're just infusing appreciation and gratitude to anything and everything just makes life better. It is a secret sauce to happiness and effectiveness.
I like that secret sauce. That's good. So do you teach any of this to your patients? Is any of this,
Oh, yeah. I teach, so we do, we Wednesday nights, we have our iPatient sessions where we do our lectures. I've had record this on Facebook and, record it on our YouTube page. Mm-hmm. And we record these lectures, and obviously they have a twist towards, or a slant towards eye health and stuff like that. But yeah, more and more I've had patients, and I have acupuncturists who are interested in training and to just learn this stuff. You know what I mean? I was struggling forever, for 4 decades, I was just like, just life was tough. It was a struggle. And, that was just my frame. And, at some point I just got tired of it. I got tired of, like, does life have to be a struggle? Is there a better way? I mean, I had good days, there's some fun stuff, but in terms of production, in terms of relationships, in terms of, there was a lot of struggle, more struggle than I believed could have been possible. So taking, I'd probably say the last 4 or 5 years, I've done a lot of study in this field, probably, easily over the last 20 years, but I'd say very intensively over the last 4 or 5 years. And what I found is that it doesn't have to be. The more that we step out of this, life is happening to me versus I'm going to create life the way I want it, kind of be more of self-authorizing and sovereign in that regard, that, hey, I want to be a creator. If you want to say like God, like the universe, like, source, whatever you want to call it, that creative capacity that we all have, we forget that. So sometimes we just have to remember that I'm the author of what's going to happen next. And the realization that it's possible I might have authored what has been going on through my belief systems, through my feelings, through my habits, which requires me then to, again, get present, be accountable, look at my life, look at what I've been doing, look at my habits, my thoughts and process, the way I've been thinking, and question that. Is that useful? Is that effective? Is that what I want? And just start asking questions. And if that, then I'll get clear, I could get present about that. Then what ultimately do I want? If I like the way things are going, great, I keep doing what I want. Right. If I want a different outcome, definition of insanity, try something new.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, I think this is great. I had a great time talking. I'd really love to do it again, but
Absolutely, Kai.
Let's see how this goes. We're going to put it out there, and hopefully this will help some people.
Awesome.
So again, Dr. Andy Rosenfarb, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, and hopefully the way of the emotional warrior shall grow through your wisdom.
Absolutely. I love what you're doing, Kai. It's awesome.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Take care.